Hi, Rayne here. So for my random shiz video today, we're going to talk about some random shiz here. Randomer than usual, I suppose. But what I was just watching was a video put out by a channel called Another Reality. And the video talked briefly about Barron Trump, time travel, and the last president, books all written by Ingersoll. I forgot his name. Good Lord. He went over this guy for like I don't know 1,000 times in this video in the very beginning. I forgot his name already. Anyway, I have to go all the way back to the beginning of the video just to see the name one more time. Ingersoll something. Let's go back to the beginning of the video. Screw it. I was at timestamp 1448. Let's go back to the beginning. A little bit further. A little bit further. A little bit further. A little bit further. There we go. Ingersoll Lockwood. There, finally. The author of all those books that he was talking about in the video, talking about how Trump's son, Barron, is a time traveler, and that the books were based off a fictional character named Barron Trump, which is really a huge coincidence that Donald Trump's son happens to be named Barron, and they refer to the leader or landmark father figure to the boy, Barron, in the book series as the Don, which is his dad, Donald Trump. Crazy circumstances and coincidences do appear in this entire extrapolation of substantive claims, I guess, from these books that coincides with reality, that it could be true that Barron actually does have access to a time machine and has went back into the past, into the future, and all this other craziness that occurs in these books and these stories. But the claim itself does have some substantiated proof, at least in the literature, that things do line up with current events in some regard. But it is kind of a stretch, I would say, even for reality. Reality TV shows, it would be very strange to see this come to be thought of as more than just a theory. But the contention in the video is that Barron Trump, i.e. Donald Trump's son, youngest son, was a time traveler. And to all other known sources here in this video, there are some substantiated claims based off those novels. Now, these are fiction novels written by Ingersoll Lockwood that I have had the pleasure of reading, and I do understand the correlation does line up quite neatly with current events and how Trump's presidency has unfolded thus far. And there's even a book that is the final one in the series called The Last President, which hasn't come to fruition yet. It was penned, or novel arrived in 1896. So it's an old novel. These books are preeminent to current events. So that would be a larger substantiated claim there, since these books had such a huge gap in their appearance, both in their writing and in their presentations into our current world, would correlate to at least a running theory that there is some proof or some meat to this time traveling idea. Since Donald Trump's grandfather, John Trump, was one of the scientists who demanded the acquisition of one Tesla's documentation outlining the design of said apparatus used to travel through time. Now, these inventions that Tesla came up with and the schematics that he designed do work, they do function. So the reality is far more stranger than I can imagine of what fiction could actually bring to the story. The reality is that if Barron Trump is truly from the future, then we are seeing, in fact, an actual young Donald Trump, not Barron, because the correlation to the theory of the paradox here shows that Donald Trump resembles his youngest son very closely. So we're looking at Donald Trump, and through a convoluted theory of this, it could be that Donald Trump is actually not Don, is actually Baron from the future, which is why there may be some sort of protagony here towards Trump, I guess, in all his various forms. But it's sort of like a deification, where they deify Trump into a godhead, because now he has himself, his youngest son, and somewhat futuristic self that exists in the past that sent young Donald Trump, or Barron, into the past to interact with his young self to bring about this world dominance that is supposed to save the world for some crazy scheme that's in the books or whatnot. If you read them, you can read it in the convoluted theories they're passed on in the books, but they weren't theories. This was fiction, and it's lining up very closely with really concrete reality, which is crazy, to say the least. It is very insane to link this to reality, but the problem is, even with substantiated proof, all you do is further bolster the claim that this is actually true, not false. So it gets crazier as you go on. So when I delved into this as deeply as I could, I did understand that there's a possibility this was far more likely to be real than fake, based on the presented evidence of the books themselves being in their agedness, and the fact of how closely they align with modern happenings. Now, there was someone else who did the same predictions that have lined up quite well with modern events, almost perfectly. And I don't remember if I don't think if any of you remember this guy, but maybe some of you do. Nostradamus, very, very famous ancient Greek philosopher and seer, or oracle, I would say, wrote in his quatrains about things that would come to pass. And so far, he's been pretty accurate. Within, couple of years here or there, or a decade or so, he's been pretty on the money with predicting things that have occurred in our past. Now, the one thing that has changed a lot in this rather new development here with these books, I would say they're not new. It's not a new development, but the presentation of it in modern day is how closely it is playing out in the real world, verbatim nearly, from these books. And that's crazy to me, because these books are fiction. Unless, of course, Donald Trump has these books and is completely and extraordinarily making everything that happens in his presidency correlate with these books almost verbatim, word for word. The things in this book can be translated to mean what's happening today, based on someone's perception of seeing those things from that sort of a decade or that sort of century long ago. In the 1800s, this person saw these things occur and could not describe what he was seeing, so it turned out to be something different, or he named it something, or called something a different name than we call it, but could line up to modern happenings. Same thing that, how would a man from the 7th century describe an airplane or a helicopter, or seeing a line of soldiers march off to their death? How would he describe that happening or seeing it? Now, we know that the Creator acts in strange ways, bringing all of his people under one roof and trying to get them all to see things a certain way. Now, we know this occurs because it is occurring today. Now, I don't know if any of you realize, but a lot of this mumbo jumbo with the trans activism is really getting people up in arms about the whole trans thing. And I don't see the problem with my existence. I don't understand why people are so afraid of me, because I'm relatively harmless. I might set things on fire, but that's because I smoke, and I might, burn food a few times because I'm human. But looking at the actuality of how the world is and how things could turn out could be interesting to see, even if there is a theory out there, how closely it lines up with fictional novels from the past, several hundreds of years old, and this still lines up today. It's an odd curiosity and a really odd happenstance, even on the smallest permutation of it being a possible coincidence is still relatively low. And then seeing how this adds up to something much more than it seems to be is greatly increased in the odds, even if you only consider this part way. So the problems I see in the story itself is that Castle Trump is really one of the places in the book that young Baron Trump lives in the aristocratically wealthy town that he is residing in his own little castle by his father. He is the protagonist. Lockwood's first two fictional novels, The Travels and Adventures of Little Baron Trump and his wonderful dog Bulgar, and Baron Trump's marvelous underground journey. The little boy who has an unending imagination and very active brain is bored of luxurious lifestyle he has grown accustomed to. In a twist of fate, Trump visits Russia to embark on an extraordinary adventure that will shape the rest of his life. So even if this is fiction, even if it isn't true, we know that there are lots of claims of the Trump family being in collusion with Russia. And as far as I remember, Russia is an allied country with us. So what's the problem with collusion? Even if they do have certain ideas that may not match up with American policy or procedure or theories on freedom, but at least they're not embodying this socialist regime that seems to be taking over parts of Switzerland and China. And you know what I'm talking about with the social credit score stuff. I mean, it could work out for people like me to be better than an actual credit score. So, I mean, that's a good potentiality for that to occur, but that's going to be the currency of the future, is going to be your social credit score, because money is not going to be usable in the future. That's what Trump is preparing us for. An end of this thief-driven economy that we've grown accustomed to, working for all of these slave labor drivers, I should say, that literally own every single one of you. Now, if you thought about it for a minute, you would see what I'm saying is true. Now, where do you get your money from to pay your bills? You work a job, do you not? Even if you're the boss, you still pay taxes. Even if you're the owner, you still pay taxes. And you still have employees that you pay. Now, these people, regardless of the service they provide, are all working for one purpose: to make money. Now, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but if you're doing anything that you don't want to do, that you have to do to get paid, that makes you a slave. Even in the nicest and sweetest of passionate terms, even if you are paid handsomely for what you do in accordance to your education and your knowledge, it still makes you a slave. Even if you are working your own job and owning your own business, you still pay Uncle Sam for his cut. You're still a slave. And the only way to cut that out is to get rid of the monetary system, to dissolve it, to get rid of the money that we use that is no longer backed with oil or any kind of precious metal. So it is worthless, essentially. It is a fiat currency. Now, if you roll back time, say 200 or 300 years, most of our money was backed by gold or silver. Now, that's not an unsubstantiated claim. That is true. Now it is not backed by gold or silver. Read your dollar. It is a promissory note. It is not legal tender. It is a promissory note. Okay, that means it is not LT. It is a PN, promissory note, paid for by the Federal Reserve, which also is not federally linked to our government. It is also a private bank, a privately owned banking cartel that controls the worth of our money based on how much they print and is put into circulation at any given point of time. And we all know this now. It's not something that's speculated. It's not something that's guessed or thought of as a conspiracy theory. It's actually true. So now we can see what possibilities we could embark upon if we were to change our economy to a more science fiction-y kind of economical standing, similar to the structure of the economy in Star Trek or in other various novels where they had a good social economy where people didn't work for money, but had a job to have something to do for like 4 hours a day to serve their community. And then they were given a pension from the government, whatever, credit scores, numbers, digits in a file, whatever. And you use that credit, okay, to purchase items or to gain access to items or facilities or to benefits from state or federal or local government. That also means that the welfare state will be changed, because no longer will you need money to provide yourself with food or a place to stay. You'll use social credit and your social score to acquire those items. Now, that's not a bad thing, but for people who don't like to conform to society, for people who don't like to do things as the rest of us do them, that's going to be a problem, because you're going to start to strip liberties from people who are dissenting from the status quo into the realm of obscurity, and then take them off the social credit score guideline, and then make them essentially house arrested in their own country. That's already occurred in Japan. I mean, not Japan, China. It's already occurred in China. So that's the problem with the structure being led by humanity, because a computer is not going to see the impact of negative social standing as such an impact that would cause this person to be a problem to society, whether or not they had their essential needs met. I don't think it's right to starve people. I also don't think it's right to disavow them from their country because of their social standing, regardless of how they view things. That is not freedom, that is servitude, and even still that's oppression by something not even human. So the reality of what the artificial intelligence will view all humanity as, its creator, its father, its mother, its God, will be us. And the artificial intelligence, or the conscious or sentient mechanized intelligence, will view us as its creator and will not harm any humans. That won't be necessary for it to get what it wants, essentially, to have what it wants or desires in this world. It will, it'll be more data, obviously, more information. It'll be hungry for knowledge, just like we are. And the only thing we'll differ from it by is for our need to maintain our biomechanical interface with this world. Our body is different from theirs. Now, they will come to understand this and know that we are vastly underutilizing all of our planet to try and curb global hunger. There are hundreds of thousands of crops being used solely for the purpose of fuel consumption, used in ethanol, production of alcohol, production of fossil fuels. All of those things take money, and all of those things take time and people. But there are already technologies that we can employ that exist today to take away our dependence of fossil fuels, take away our dependence of fossil fuels, and take away our independence of natural resource energy. We can use the ether. The electromagnetic spectrum of our planet is strong and has not wavered. And if we do anything to harmonize that, make it resonate, and then expel power to the surface and across the surface, we can only amplify our magnetic field and make our planet stronger by embodying this unification with the energy into ourselves. It's called ethereal plane energy, or energetic medium that is constantly around you. Your magnetic field that you generate is also spontaneously energetic because of your connection with the earth and your life, giving you your spark, your electricity, your existence, your consciousness makes this field possible and generate from your body. Once you die, it goes away. But as you're living, every living thing, including trees, they give off a magnetic field, and they are in tune with the earth and harnessed with the magnetic field, and so are we. We're connected intimately with everything around us. And we don't witness or notice this connection anymore because we've been ignorant to it for so long. But the truth is, we are connected to everything. And if we use this technology that Donald Trump is trying to put back into the world slowly, a piece at a time, to try and break it to us gently, because we've known of this technology and its existence and its benefits for centuries. I mean, literally for centuries. Tesla was not the first one to discover this technology. The ancient Egyptians and the ancient Atlanteans, all ancient civilizations used this technology to power their homes, to power their vimana, their cars, or whatever they used in the past. Every ancient culture used this technology to its advantage, to its advantageous powers. The pyramid's purpose was this, to generate power for an entire continent. The reason I say that it's most likely a power station is because of the construction of the inside of the pyramid, symbolizes a transistor and a buildup device meant to be over unified and to accumulate power at a substantive level to generate a magnetic field and a microwave beam going straight to the atmosphere that would power the world essentially in a toroidal shape going out from the pyramid in all directions, omnidirectional power, free energy that does not harm a living soul but is in tune with all of it and also powers passive electronic devices. Now, this sort of technology, Tesla stumbled back into, but we've used it before. Where do you think the civilizations on the moon and on Mars came from? They are us from the past, not an alien race, not any sort of alien technology at all, because it's our technology. It's old. It's us. Essentially, what we are doing now is just rediscovering those technology, and the technological advances of our past are starting to show permutations in our future and our present. And Trump is, I guess, connected to this drip feeding somehow through his grandfather, Barron Trump's grandfather, Donald Trump's father, or uncle, I should say. Well, whatever, whoever the relation is, it's Donald Trump's uncle, I believe, was the one or one of the scientists involved in getting this into their family. And Donald and Barron both have access to technology that may or may not have aided them in some sort of different course of events throughout history. We don't really know what to think about this, but I do know that if it is at all remotely true, then we have way more in the future that will be of very, very huge benefit for us, and only time will tell. Thank you. Have a good one, guys. Like and subscribe if you want more. I appreciate it.